Before you complain about your day, pause. We're about to enter a gallery of human catastrophe. This isn't just bad luck. It's a curated exhibition of misfortunes so profound it borders on performance art. These are the stories of people who would trade their soul-crushing, absurd day for yours in a heartbeat. This is a masterclass in pure, uncut failure. 1. The Porcelain Missile Crisis. Some bad days start with spilled coffee. Others begin with a full-sized porcelain toilet ejecting itself from a truck on the interstate and obliterating your windshield. This is not a metaphor. This happened. The driver, miraculously, was fine. Physically. Mentally, we can only speculate. The real trauma must have been the phone call to the insurance agent. So you're telling me you were struck by flying plumbing? It's a claim so absurd it loops back around to being undeniable. You simply cannot invent that level of bureaucratic chaos. The universe, it seems, has a very specific and very heavy-handed sense of humor when it comes to projectile home goods. 2. The Suburban Fossil Record. In Iowa, a monument to human impatience is now permanently curing. A driver, possessed by a confidence that bordered on the supernatural, ignored a phalanx of wet concrete signs. They proceeded to drive their brand new SUV directly into a freshly poured highway section. It didn't just get stuck, it sank. Up to the windows. The construction crew could only watch, presumably in awe. There was no rescue. The vehicle was consumed. That SUV is now an eternal, load-bearing part of the road's foundation. A silent, expensive warning to all who follow. A modern-day fossil proving arrogance always outweighs torque. 3. A calculated ejection. The pre-flight check. A vital, if tedious, ritual of aviation. For one student pilot, it became a moment of catastrophic curiosity. While sitting in the cockpit inside the hangar, he did what countless people have dreamed of doing. He pulled the ejector seat handle. The system worked perfectly. He was launched with violent rocket-propelled force directly into the hangar ceiling. The multi-million-dollar jet, meanwhile, remained perfectly unharmed on the ground, having successfully expelled its problematic human component. One imagines his flight instructor simply crossed his arms, sighed, and went to find a very, very long ladder. 4. The Jet Ski Al Fresco. A man on vacation rented a powerful jet ski, eager to taste the ocean's spray. He decided to see what it could really do. He floored it, aiming for the open ocean. The problem? He was in a small, enclosed bay. He crossed the entire body of water in about 3 seconds. His aquatic adventure concluded by crashing directly through the outdoor dining patio of a 5-star waterfront restaurant. He didn't just make a splash. He made an entrance, one that involved splintered tables, terrified diners, and the most spectacular room service delivery the establishment had ever witnessed. 5. The Great Pink Way. When a truck carrying thousands of gallons of concentrated bubblegum pink paint pigment overturned on a major freeway, it wasn't just an accident. It was an involuntary art installation. A sudden rainstorm turned the spill into a river of indestructible Pepto-Bismol-colored horror. It flooded the highway, stained hundreds of cars, and created a traffic jam so epic and surreal it made national news. This wasn't just a commute. This was Mad Max Fuchsia Road. Drivers weren't just late for work. They were witnesses to an environmental Jackson Pollock painting, and they were in it. 6. The Marathon Obstacle Course. Blindly trusting your GPS is a modern-day sin. For one driver, it led to a full-blown catastrophe. The soothing digital voice navigated their rental car off a side street and directly onto the course of a live city marathon. They instantly became the single most hated person in the city. A slow-moving metal obstacle for 10,000 exhausted, enraged runners. There was no escape. They couldn't speed up, they couldn't turn around, they were just forced to endure the glares, curses, and synchronized breathing of an entire city's athletic population. They didn't just find their destination, they found a new level of social pariah status. 7. The Roof-Top Depository. We've all done it. You're packing the car, hands full, you place your wallet, phone, and keys on the roof for just a second. This man did exactly that. He then got in, started the engine, and drove onto the highway. He only remembered his mistake when he glanced in the rearview mirror, just in time to watch his entire identity, his money, his license, his connection to the world, fly off the roof and scatter across 4 lanes of high-speed traffic. In 1 second, he went from a man moving cross-country to a man with no name, no money, and no way to call for help. 8. The abstract prize. Winning the grand prize is a dream. This man won a brand new 6-figure luxury sports car. His day couldn't get any better. Until, that is, the flatbed truck delivering his prize was involved in a freak accident. His dream car did arrive at his house, just not in the condition he'd hoped. It arrived as a single compressed cube of metal and glass. He was technically still a winner. He just owned the world's most expensive and least functional paperweight. A perfect, heartbreaking sculpture titled So Close. 9. The 20-minute Fish Inferno. A new intern, eager to impress, decided to heat up his leftover fish curry in the office microwave. A noble, if aromatically challenging, choice. His fatal error? He accidentally set the timer for 20 minutes instead of 2. The resulting burnt fish and curry plastic inferno was so toxic it triggered the fire alarm, forcing a full evacuation of the 30-story building. This wasn't just a bad lunch, it was an act of olfactory terrorism. He didn't just make a bad impression, he became a company legend for all the wrong reasons. His career was quite literally up in smoke. 10. The janitor as art critic. A janitor at a modern art museum in Italy was faced with a pile of garbage, leftover bottles, confetti, and discarded wrappers from an opening night party. So she did her job. She cleaned it up and threw it all away. The problem? That garbage was the art installation, a piece valued at thousands of dollars. In her defense, she was technically correct. But the art world's one man's trash is another man's treasure philosophy met its match in a woman with a broom and a deadline. She remains perhaps the most honest and unforgiving art critic of our time. 11. The database deletion derby. A freshly hired programmer on his very first week was given a simple task. He ran a script. Unfortunately, it was the wrong script on the wrong server. In one single terrifying click, he managed to delete the company's entire production database. He achieved what corporate rivals and cyber terrorists had only dreamed of. He took the whole company offline. There's a delete key, and then there's an undo my entire employment key. He found the latter. The silence in the office must have been deafening, broken only by the sound of his own heart pounding its way out of his chest. 12. The Autocorrect Resignation. A woman meant to text her boss, "Sorry, I'm running a little late," but her phone, in its infinite wisdom, decided she meant something else entirely. Autocorrect twisted her professional apology into a message so wildly, graphically, and sexually inappropriate that it defied all logic. Upon reading what she had sent, she didn't try to explain. She didn't text, "OMG, wrong person." She just gave up. She turned her car around, drove back home, and presumably began updating her resume. Sometimes, technology makes a decision for you. 13. The Fire Gym Broadcast. The CEO of a major company, furious with an employee, used voice-to-text to dictate a message to his assistant. "Fire Jim immediately. His incompetence is staggering." The system, however, had a different distribution list in mind. It sent that exact message not to his assistant, but to the entire company's general announcements group chat. In one fell swoop, he had fired Jim, humiliated him publicly, and revealed his own managerial style to thousands of employees. It was a masterstroke of efficiency and catastrophic leadership. Jim, at least, knew exactly where he stood. 14. The Accidental Exhibitionist. During a company-wide Zoom meeting with the CEO, an employee thought his camera was off. He was mistaken. He proceeded to stand up, revealing to the entire executive board that while he was wearing a professional shirt and tie, he was complimenting the look with only a tiny pair of superhero-themed underwear. This is the new business casual. He wasn't just working from home. He was broadcasting his own private Comic-Con. The horrified silence of the other 200 participants was his standing ovation. 15. The 10,000 Chair Gambit. Some mistakes are small. Others involve misplacing a decimal point. A junior employee at a large corporation accidentally ordered 10,000 high-end ergonomic office chairs instead of the 100 they needed. He had, in a single keystroke, committed the company to a multi-million-dollar purchase they couldn't afford and certainly couldn't store. One pictures the subsequent arrival, an endless convoy of trucks, a sea of mesh and lumbar support, flooding the parking lot. He didn't just reorder supplies, he accidentally furnished a small nation. 16. The Photographic Void. A wedding photographer. A 10-hour day. Every perfect, once-in-a-lifetime moment. The kiss, the first dance, the tearful toasts. He captured it all. It was only while packing up his gear at the end of the night that he discovered, with a cold, soul-crushing certainty, that he had forgotten to put a memory card in his camera. He had spent the entire day performing a flawless pantomime of photography. He hadn't captured memories. He had simply created a 10-hour high-resolution void. He was no longer a photographer, he was just a man who had pointed a plastic box at a party. 17. The viral meme that wasn't. A social media manager thought they were posting a wildly inappropriate, deeply offensive meme to their private burner account. They were not. They had instead posted it from the official verified corporate account of a Fortune 500 company. The post was broadcast instantly to millions of followers, the executive board, and the global press. The 5 seconds it took to realize the error must have felt like an eternity. They didn't just go viral, they became the human sacrifice offered up to the gods of corporate public relations. 18. The Demolition Bath Bomb. A woman's relaxing bath was rudely interrupted. Forget bath bombs or Epsom salts, her relaxation was punctuated by her entire ceiling giving way. A deluge of insulation, drywall, and decades of forgotten attic dust crashed directly into the tub with her. She didn't just get a bath, she got a live-action demolition. In an instant, her peaceful soak became an archaeological dig. At least she was already in the right place to wash off the sudden structural grime. It's hard to complain about privacy when the roof itself decides to drop in. 19. The Arachnophobic Arsonist. A homeowner with a crippling fear of spiders decided to kill one, but this wasn't a job for a rolled-up magazine. This was a job for a blowtorch and a can of spray paint. He got the spider. He also got his entire laundry room and a significant portion of his house, which was now engulfed in flames. This is the definition of overkill. The spider was eliminated, but so was his homeowner's insurance policy. He won the battle against the arachnid, but lost the war against basic common sense. 20. The Un-Plumber. Trying to install a new toilet is a noble DIY endeavor. This man, however, managed to cross-thread a pipe, causing it to burst. He didn't just flood his own bathroom. He unleashed a biblical torrent that flooded his entire apartment and the 3 apartments directly below him. In less than 10 minutes, he went from handyman to building-wide villain. He wasn't just installing a toilet, he was installing a 4-story indoor waterfall. One imagines his neighbors were not amused by the sudden change in amenities. 21. The Pressure-Cooker Culinarian. Someone left a pressure cooker on the stove and forgot about it. It later exploded with the force of a small improvised device. The kitchen door was blown clean off its hinges. Carrots, presumably from the beef stew, were embedded into the ceiling drywall. The kitchen was instantly redecorated in a unique shrapnel chic style. This wasn't cooking, it was uncontrolled demolition. It's one thing to overcook the meal, it's quite another to have the meal violently declare war on the room it was cooked in. 22. The Acetone Upgrade. A man trying to clean a stubborn coffee stain off the pristine leather seats of his new luxury car decided to use something stronger. He grabbed a bottle of what he thought was a special cleaner. It was pure acetone. He didn't just remove the stain, he instantly melted the top layer of the leather into a sticky, bubbling, permanently ruined goo. He had effectively cleaned the leather right out of existence. His car still had that new car smell, now blended with the acrid aroma of chemical burns and profound, irreversible regret. 23. The Human Flytrap. A homeowner decided to paint his living room with what he thought was a trendy, high-gloss paint. It turned out to be industrial-grade marine enamel that, crucially, never fully cured. For years, his walls remained tacky. Everything that touched them, dust, pet hair, the coats of visiting guests, became permanently stuck. His home was no longer a living space. It was a human-sized fly trap. He hadn't just redecorated, he had created a passive, sticky prison. One hopes he didn't lean against the walls very often. 24. The Turkey Detonation. Deep frying a frozen turkey is a notoriously bad idea, a physics lesson taught by fire departments nationwide. One man discovered just how bad when the resulting grease explosion not only incinerated the turkey, but also created a fireball that melted the vinyl siding clean off the side of his house. Thanksgiving was, at that point, officially canceled. He wasn't just hosting a dinner, he was hosting a pyrotechnic display. The turkey went from frozen to vaporized in about half a second, bypassing the cook stage entirely. 25. The dish soap vinaigrette. Being health conscious is great. Less so when you spend Sunday prepping a week's worth of healthy salads, only to realize you've dressed every single one with what you thought was olive oil. It was, in fact, a large bottle of lemon-scented dish soap your roommate had left on the counter. His entire week of lunches was ruined. Not just ruined, but now sparkling clean. He was left with 5 containers of the saddest, bubbliest, most inedible health food ever created. 26. The IKEA Labyrinth. After spending 8 agonizing hours meticulously assembling a massive, floor-to-ceiling IKEA wardrobe inside his small bedroom, a man put the last screw in place. He stepped back to admire his work, and in that moment, he realized with chilling certainty that he had built it in such a way that it now permanently blocked the only door to the room. He was trapped. Trapped by his own handiwork. His beautiful new storage solution had become his Swedish-designed prison cell. 27. The Concrete Quicksand. A man decided to pour a self-leveling concrete floor in his own basement. He meticulously started at the far end of the room and worked his way backward, ensuring a perfect, smooth finish. He only realized his mistake when he was done. He had trapped himself in a corner with no exit, standing in a slowly curing pool of wet concrete. He had to stand there for hours, slowly sinking, waiting for his own masterpiece to dry enough to walk on. He didn't just finish the job, he became a temporary, breathing statue in his own new floor. 28. The Taco Summoning Car. The owner of a new high-tech self-driving car was showing it off. He didn't realize he'd accidentally activated a summon feature. Later that night, his car silently drove itself out of the garage. It then proceeded to the nearest Taco Bell drive-thru, where it repeatedly and silently tried to order 100 tacos by bumping into the speaker box. The car wasn't just smart, it was hungry. This wasn't a ghost in the machine, it was a stoner in the software. 29. The Dual Drone Dilemma. After getting his brand new, expensive drone stuck high up in a tree, a man had a brilliant idea. He would use his old drone to knock the new one down. You can, of course, guess what happened next. The rescue mission failed spectacularly. Now he has 2 very expensive drones stuck in the same tree, mocking him from above. He didn't solve his problem, he doubled it. He created a small, costly graveyard of his own hubris, 50 feet off the ground. 30. The Dissolvable Prank. Imagine the confidence of wearing trendy new swim trunks to a crowded pool party. Now imagine discovering they are the dissolvable prank kind only after you've cannonballed into the deep end. In the span of about 15 seconds, this man's day went from party starter to public indecency charge. He entered the pool a guest, he exited it a registered offender. The panic of realizing your clothes are melting off your body in front of everyone you know is a special kind of hell. 31. The Robotic Scalping. Waking up to find your hair being aggressively eaten by a robot is a special kind of terror. A woman fell asleep on the floor and her robotic vacuum cleaner snagged her long hair. The machine, not programmed for human, interpreted this as a very stubborn dust bunny. It attempted to clean her by dragging her around the living room by her scalp. This wasn't a convenience. It was a low-budget horror movie. She wasn't resting, she was being assaulted by a domestic appliance. 32. The Wrong-Number Bidet. A man proudly installed a new smart toilet with a remote-controlled bidet. His neighbor, meanwhile, was trying to connect to his new Bluetooth speaker. The neighbor's phone, however, accidentally paired with the toilet instead. He then unknowingly activated the high-pressure jet wash feature while the man was peacefully sitting there. The result was a sudden, violent, and extremely personal aquatic assault. This wasn't a system error. It was a targeted, high-tech violation. 33. The packing peanut allergy. A guy thought it would be a hilarious prank to fill his roommate's entire room with packing peanuts while he was away. A classic. What he didn't realize, however, was that his roommate was deathly allergic to styrofoam. The prank quickly turned into a frantic 911 call and an epic cleanup job. His hilarious joke nearly became an accidental assassination. The sheer volume of peanuts must have made the paramedics' job exceptionally difficult. 34. The Feathered Gangster. A man trying to get a scenic photo with a majestic swan learned a valuable lesson in wildlife etiquette. The swan, apparently not in the mood for a close-up, viciously attacked him. It didn't just peck him, it dragged him into a lake and effectively held him hostage, circling and hissing until help arrived. Some birds are less graceful beauty and more feathered gangster. This swan wasn't just territorial, it was a kidnapper. The man's photo shoot became a hostage negotiation. 35. The Goose-Based Standoff. A UPS driver was more concerned about a beware of dog sign than the small goose wandering the property. This was a grave mistake. The goose was ferociously territorial. It trapped the driver in his truck for nearly an hour, hissing, flapping, and charging the door every time he tried to get out. This wasn't a delivery, it was a siege. The driver was held captive by a creature that is essentially just an angry, weaponized loaf of bread. 36. The Ovine Hostage-Taker. A farmer got knocked into a muddy ditch by one of his own very angry rams. The indignity didn't end there. The ram then stood guard at the edge of the ditch, refusing to let him climb out. For over an hour, the farmer was held hostage by his own livestock. Every attempt to escape was met with a menacing snort and the threat of another charge. His wife eventually had to come and investigate the commotion, finding her husband imprisoned by a disgruntled sheep. 37. The Alexa-Enabled Parrot. A family couldn't figure out why they kept receiving Amazon packages for things they never ordered. Light bulbs, tools, watermelon cages. They finally caught the culprit. Their pet parrot had been perfectly mimicking their voices and ordering items through their Alexa device. The bird wasn't just a pet, it was a serial consumer with a bizarre shopping list. It had achieved what many dream of: unlimited, unsupervised online shopping. The return process must have been a nightmare to explain. 38. The 600-pound Teacup Pig. A woman bought what she thought was an adorable teacup piglet. A year later, her tiny companion had grown into a 600-pound commercial-grade hog. The animal had learned how to open the refrigerator and now ruled the house like a porky dictator. This wasn't a pet. It was a livestock invasion. The line between domestic animal and thing that eats your drywall had been decisively crossed. Her dream of a tiny, cute pet became a massive, food-motivated roommate. 39. The Caffeinated Demolitionist. A squirrel, after finding and consuming a homeowner's stash of high-end espresso beans, went on a caffeine-fueled rampage. For the next hour, the tiny rodent systematically dismantled the living room. It shattered heirlooms, tore apart pillows, and raced across the walls like a miniature furry demolition crew. This wasn't just a squirrel. It was a crackhead. The homeowner returned to a scene of utter chaos, all because a rodent got a better caffeine buzz than most humans. 40. The Cliffside Calamity. A perfect cliffside proposal. The view, the ring, the sudden tumbling groom. He got so excited at the prospect of marriage that he literally tumbled off the cliff. Firefighters had to rappel down to rescue him while his terrified and presumably baffled girlfriend watched. The shock? She still said yes, which is arguably the bigger story. She looked at this man who had just demonstrated his inability to stand still on a large rock and thought, yes, I want to spend my life with him. 41. The Be Mine Wedding. A couple's beautiful outdoor wedding was interrupted when a massive swarm of bees descended upon the ceremony. The vows were cut short. The entire wedding party, including the bride and groom in their full expensive attire, had to flee for their lives. The phrase "bee mine" took on a new, terrifying meaning. This wasn't just a union, it was an ecological event. The bees clearly did not approve of the marriage and registered their objection in the most aggressive way possible. 42. The swinging adult. A grown man attempting to relive his childhood got himself completely and inextricably stuck in a toddler's swing set at a public park. Firefighters had to be called in. With the jaws of life, they had to use emergency rescue tools to cut him free, all in front of a growing crowd of very amused onlookers and their small children. His nostalgic trip down memory lane became a public spectacle of failure. He wasn't just stuck, he was a living metaphor for being unable to let go of the past. 43. The fountain date. On a first date, a guy tried to smoothly lean against a railing near a public fountain. He misjudged the distance completely. He tumbled over the edge and landed with a huge echoing splash in the water. The date was over. Instantly. He didn't just break the ice, he shattered it, fell through it, and drowned any hope of a second date in 2 feet of chlorinated water. His attempt at being cool resulted in being soaking wet and humiliated. 44. The prison yard balloon ride. A guy took his new girlfriend on a romantic hot air balloon ride. It was perfect, until a sudden wind change forced them to make an emergency landing in the middle of a maximum security prison yard. Their date ended with them surrounded by armed guards with rifles drawn, searchlights in their faces. It's hard to maintain the romance when you're being treated as a potential escape vehicle. This wasn't just a bad date, it was an accidental prison break. 45. The belt loop suspension. In an attempt to be cool, a skater tried to grind down a long public staircase railing. He lost his balance immediately, but instead of just falling, his belt loop snagged on the railing. He was left hanging upside down by his pants for everyone to see. He wasn't a skater anymore, he was a human piñata. His failed stunt became a public display of gravity's cruelty, his dignity draining away along with the change from his pockets. 46. The lost proposal. The perfect public proposal on a crowded pier went south in spectacular fashion. As the man knelt to present the ring, a passing jogger bumped into him. The tiny, very expensive diamond ring was sent flying out of the box. It bounced once on the wooden planks and disappeared forever into the dark water below. The gasp from the crowd must have been deafening. He didn't just lose a ring, he lost a small car. The ocean, it seems, does not accept returns. 47. The 12-second heist. Think about the confidence it takes to rob a store without a mask. Now, think about the cashier recognizing you and saying, "Hey Dave, what are you doing?" This is exactly what happened. The robber Dave just gave up. He turned around and walked out. His entire criminal career lasted exactly 12 seconds. He was defeated not by a weapon or a security guard, but by casual familiarity. Some people just aren't cut out for a life of crime. 48. The Chimney 911. A would-be burglar in Arizona got himself hopelessly stuck in a home's chimney. This is not a cartoon. This is just bad planning. After hours of failing to wiggle free, he had no choice but to call 911 on himself. The fire department successfully extracted him, covered in soot and shame, and delivered him directly into the custody of the waiting police officers. He managed to break into the house, just not in a way that allowed him to leave. 49. The GPS Getaway. 2 robbers broke into an electronics store and stole a large box. Their prize? Dozens of brand new GPS tracking devices. Still in the box, still turned on. They then led the police on a very, very short chase. The officers simply followed the perfectly laid out digital map of pings, which led them directly to the robbers' hideout. They didn't just steal the evidence, they stole their own capture. It was the most efficient and polite getaway in criminal history. 50. The Un-SWAT-ed. Ever had unexpected guests? How about an entire SWAT team smashing through your door at 5 a.m. with flashbangs and screaming? It's a terrifying way to wake up. It gets worse when they all stop, look around, and realize they have the wrong address. The subsequent apology from a guy in full tactical gear probably doesn't cover the cost of a new door, or the therapy. Our mistake takes on a new meaning when it's delivered at gunpoint. The final verdict. And so, the curtain falls on our grand theater of human folly. 50 stories. 50 monuments to the precise moment where confidence eclipsed competence. 50 souls who woke up thinking today is just another day, only to have the universe single them out for a starring role in a cosmic slapstick routine. What have we learned from this descent into the abyss of absurdity? Perhaps we've learned that technology is not our friend. It is a malicious genie, waiting for us to mumble fire gym or simply walk by a Bluetooth toilet, ready to grant our most destructive unspoken wishes. We've learned that the animal kingdom is not a collection of cuddly sidekicks. It is a waiting army of feathered and furred saboteurs. From caffeinated squirrels to goose-shaped security guards, all patiently awaiting their moment to reclaim the planet. We've seen that our homes are not sanctuaries. They are booby-trapped labyrinths of exploding pressure cookers, vengeful robotic vacuums, and paint that turns a living room into a sticky, permanent prison. We've confirmed that the workplace is a minefield where a single click can delete a database, a misplaced decimal can bankrupt a company, and a simple lunch break can trigger a 30-story evacuation. These are not isolated incidents. These are warnings. They are the ghosts of bad decisions, haunting the hallways of our everyday lives. They are the cautionary tales whispered by insurance adjusters and emergency room doctors. The individuals in these chronicles are not fundamentally different from us. They are simply the ones who slipped. The ones who zigged when the world demanded a zag. They held the blowtorch too close to the spider. They trusted autocorrect. They underestimated the structural integrity of a baby swing. So the next time you spill your coffee, get a flat tire, or send an email to the wrong person, take a breath. Remember the man trapped in the chimney. Remember the man held hostage by a ram. Remember the 600-pound teacup hog currently ruling a suburban home like a porky dictator? Your day is fine.